Well, LSU fans, I guess you got your wish on Sunday. The school deciding to pull the plug of the Brian Kelly experiment after 4 seasons in Baton Rouge. Kelly was in the middle of a 5-3 season and failed to deliver on those championship expectations when it comes down to the Tigers. Now the program has to shift and find a new head coach and recruits that might be looking a different direction. When he came into this spot here, LSU invested heavily in his roster through the transfer portal and loading up on talent. Take a look at it. Nationally ranked 11th overall in 2026. Conference ranked 6, 5 stars you got 1, and 13 4 stars. But when you look at it from the big picture here, the top 10 class, nowhere to be found, although they're just off the list at 11th overall in the country. All right, for more of the recruiting fallout there, the fellas tapping in, Tom Lloyd and Brandon Huffman from 24/7 Sports. And Tom, I'll start with you. What is the next move for LSU? You have Frank Wilson trying to hold things together while the search for the next HC begins. What happens from this point?
Yeah, that's exactly it, is keeping it together on and off the field. Frank Wilson is LSU. He's Louisiana guy. He's from New Orleans. I mean, he is the right guy for the current role as interim head coach. I think what's wild is we talked about James Franklin, we talked about Penn State, everybody freaking out, melting down, decommitting because he left Penn State. You didn't see that when it came to Brian Kelly and his departure from LSU. So these guys picked LSU for the right reasons, for the culture, for the big picture. I mean, this is one of those schools where you pick this program for a variety of reasons beyond a single coach. So I think the focus for Frank Wilson and the current staff there in Baton Rouge is to button up this recruiting class, make sure everybody's on the same page, win some football games. And I think the biggest priority moving forward off the field is making sure 5-star defensive lineman, arguably the top player in the 2026 class, Lamar Brown, is fully committed moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's important that you keep him there. You can't get any closer to the LSU campus than Lamar Brown. He's a player that is right there in your backyard. He is the most important recruit in this class. So people say every time there's a coaching change, hey, I'm worried about the long-term health of the program. I'm not worried about any one player. No, you worry about a player of this ability. I think back to when Pete Carroll was hired at USC. The most important recruit that he landed in his first class was Sean Cody, the #1 defensive lineman in his backyard. And that set the tone for the next 10 years of what Pete did at USC. Whoever is retained for the LSU head job, whether they're a new hire or Frank Wilson that's retained, you have got to keep Lamar Brown, because then the trickle-down effect becomes that much greater from the impact he could have by staying. So you're going to have to stave off other schools in trying to get him. But that is so important to keep Lamar Brown. It's so important that these coaches keep recruiting, keep trying to show that whether they should be the man for the job or that they can be hired at another place. But Lamar Brown is the real linchpin in this class.
Brandon, you kind of touched on it there. By the way, Lamar, we saw that saying coach was the first one to believe in him. This might trickle down to other recruits there. How might that get in the way, or maybe how do they kind of slow that down with the exit there of Kelly?
I think it's important because you got to keep that local kid there. If you don't keep that local kid there, then other in-state kids. I mean, you can't get any closer to campus than Lamar Brown. So you lose him, you lose other in-state kids, and then the other kids in the region start to wonder, hey, is there a reason why these guys are all looking elsewhere? If there's one benefit for LSU, that it's late in the cycle, we're 5-6 weeks away from signing day, so they're probably going to get pen to paper. There's also all the other stuff that comes along with recruiting in 2026 with NIL that likely keeps them there. But you've got Texas and Texas A&M, who were both in on him. You had Miami, who was in on him. All three of those hosted him for official visits. That's what makes it so important that LSU holds on to him while keeping those other 3 schools, including a Texas A&M that's as hot as any team in the country, from trying to flip it.
Lamar Brown is the most important, maybe the most important recruit for any program moving forward as signing day approaches on December 3rd. Again, like Huffman said, I mean, he is right there in the backyard on campus. He goes to LSU as much as any current player on the roster. I mean, he was just there last week, a couple days before the firing of Brian Kelly, returns on Saturday to watch the game against Texas A&M. So moving forward, I think Lamar Brown is going to stick with LSU regardless of who they bring in. Whether it's Nick Saban, Lane Kiffin, whoever they go after, I think Lamar Brown is going to end up signing with LSU. And when you talk to people in Baton Rouge, they believe that's the case as well. He chose LSU for a variety of reasons beyond just Brian Kelly. Nothing but respect for Kelly, no question about it. But this kid is all about LSU. The one dark horse for the Aggies fans out there, keep an eye on Texas A&M. I think they're the ones working behind the scenes. You obviously just watched them in Death Valley. But again, my best guess at this point is LSU keeps the 5-star in the class.
Yeah, Brown was seen leaving the field after the game with fans saying, please don't leave, stay with us. Of course, after thinking that Kelly was going to be gone, and now he is. Elsewhere, at least you don't have to worry about maybe the NFL coming to get your coach. Steve Sarkisian, he kind of tried to quiet those rumors there, even told us in the post game that, look, that was unprofessional. This should not be out there. But, Tom, from the recruiting perspective there, how does this get in the way and distract you from, potential talent coming your way?
I think this was completely blown out of proportion, and shout out to the agency for getting that buttoned up. And you could see how passionate Sarkeesian was about this. You could tell how genuine he was. Like, this was not a real thing. And I don't think there's going to be any impact on the recruiting process. I mean, these guys have a top 10 recruiting class, number 7 nationally, 3 5-stars, led by quarterback Diabell, one of the top quarterbacks in America, but completely blown out of proportion. I have a feeling that it was a case of, hey, let's reach out to the agent. Would he have any interest in the NFL? The same thing is asked to Notre Dame's Marcus Freeman, Georgia's Kirby Smart. Of course they're going to answer a phone call, but that's kind of where it ends. I think Sarkeesian's at Texas for the long haul. Again, completely blown out of proportion, zero impact on recruiting.
I'm old enough to remember when Nick Saban said he was not going to go be the coach at Alabama, and he ended up at the coach of Alabama. Now, I'm not at all saying that Sark's doing that, but I do think there was a bit of coach speak, and I think by as passionate as he responded, that's his way of throwing the scent off there, especially with Texas still having everything in front of them that they had as goals before the season started. They already beat Oklahoma. Yeah, they had an early loss that they would probably like to take back. Then they had the Ohio State game, but there's still a chance for them to win the SEC, and there's still a chance for this season to end in the playoffs like they had been targeting. That said, there is a lot of questions about Sark with the Arch Manning coaching. And, is this something that he's looking at? Maybe he gets to the NFL and realizing that the politics that are at play at a school like Texas, this is the guy who's been at Alabama. He's been at USC. He's been at schools that are blue bloods and understands the politicking there. But, is this his way of just kind of feeling the waters and seeing if there's any NFL teams that are there? Probably not. I do think, like Tom said, he is there for the long haul. He's a great play caller, one of the best in college football, and he's best fit for the college football game. So he's been to the NFL. He's been an assistant coach in the NFL and came back to college pretty quickly. So I think long-term and short-term, this is not going to have any real effect on the Texas recruiting class. If it were for him to leave here, especially with Tennessee having an opening, does that impact Diabell? Potentially, but that's a logo school. That's going to be the school that would jump to number 1 in the recruiting carousel for all these open jobs because of all the resources. And so you're going to be able to attract a big-time coach, a big-time play caller. So I don't think it's going to have an impact on this class. And like Tom said, I think at the end of the day, this was probably blown out of proportion just a bit. And I think the way Sark answered this so passionately kind of shows that he does realize that the job's not finished yet in Austin.
We got about a minute here, Tom, but I want to stay here with this. If you're Steve Sarkisian putting a stamp and beating Vanderbilt this week, does that help the comments you made last week about I'm here to stay?
Just win, baby. That's all that matters. That's really what it comes down to. Just do your job on the field, show that you're here for the long haul, win football games, focus on national championships, recruit the best of the best players in the country. That's really what Sark and the Texas Longhorn staff is about. Again, this is completely blown out of proportion. Just win games, show where your focus is. I expect good things from Texas this weekend.
I've been watching Sark since he was an offensive coordinator at USC. There's not very many coaches in college football that enjoy recruiting at the level as a head coach that Steve Sarkisian did. Going back to Washington, to USC, now at Texas, the guy loves to recruit. He loves the relationship building. He loves the player development. That's not stuff you're going to get in the NFL. And that's why I think he stays at Texas for the long haul. And it would help if they could get some wins and Arch goes out and has this magnificent game. So that at least for a week, all the Arch whispers and all the Arch, soapbox standing ends. But again, I think Sark is suited for the collegiate game. And even with so many college coaches saying they're tired of the game, I think that this is going to allow Sark to continue to emerge as one of the best coaches in college football.
We will see. It's hard to believe and hard to say. They need a big win against a number 9 Vanderbilt team. It's 2025, but that's the storyline for us this time of year. Tom and Brandon, appreciate as always getting us everything we need when it comes to recruiting. Don't forget, you can catch up with all the stories with the college football page on YouTube. Tapping in. We just mentioned here Vandy versus Texas. We'll see if Arch Manning will be QB1 in concussion protocol. But use that QR code the closer we get to week 9 in college.